Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 1st Utility Advisory Commission meeting. We do not have any agenda changes, additions, or deletions. I will roll call, starting to my right.
Commissioner Phillips here.
Commissioner Croft here.
Commissioner Forcell here.
I really think this. Commissioner Metz here. Thank you.
And Chair Siegel is here. So I did that backwards. So I'll say we don't have any additions or deletions to the agenda. Are there any public comments on any item not on the agenda?
This is Janelle Camion, Program Assistant. If anyone would like to make an oral communication, please raise your hand or dial *9 on your phone. No hands raised.
Thank you. And we do not have any minutes yet. Our meeting was just a couple of weeks ago and there hasn't been time to turn those around. So we'll review them at the next December meeting. And so we'll turn to Director Batchelor for his report.
Thank you, Chair Siegel. Evening, commissioners. Start off with a little bit. I think I mentioned this at the last moment in the last meeting, but staff submitted 2 grant applications to the Department of Energy DOE for grid resiliency and innovation partnership, which was GRIP program for the electric grid modernization. We recently learned last month, and that was actually the night of when we had our last meeting, that the city was not awarded the $110 million that we had asked for the grant funding. The program is, from what we saw, was very competitive. There was a lot of applications, and the award seemed to trend to utilities in disadvantaged communities. And then with older distribution systems, harsher weather conditions. We also applied for 4,000 building upgrade prize from the DOE for affordable housing, and we didn't receive that as well either. We'll have more details. We are supposed to be receiving a letter in this month, hopefully before the December meeting, so that I'll be able to give you a little bit more in-depth on why we didn't receive those grants. But unfortunately, we did not, but we will resubmit in the coming year for our projects. And hopefully we'll learn a little bit more from what we get from the details so that we can address those and figure out how we're able to get some of this money that they're offering up on these grants. We're thrilled to announce a new limited time pricing adjustment for our heat pump water heaters program, thanks to additional funding from Tech Clean California. Tech is a statewide initiative adopting clean water and space heating technologies to help California meet its goals and becoming a carbon neutral by 2045. For a limited time, residents now can receive a higher rebate and discount on heat pump water heater installations. If you choose to hire your own contractor, you can receive up to $1,500 and from Palo Alto Plus to $3,800 from the state for a total rebate of $5,300. The full service program offers a standard 65-gallon heat pump water heater installed at the price of $1,900 plus $1,500 credit towards site preparation costs. And this price covers the permits, the equipment installation for customers. The discount pricing is available for only 6 months. After the city will smaller discounts until the state tech funding runs out. And to learn more about that, we can go to cityofpaloalto.org/switch, or we can call 650-713-3411. Talking a little bit about also Heat Pump Water Heater Day campaign. October the 25th was Heat Pump Water Day. Entire dedication to heat pump water heaters, education and awareness. Collectively, we have the power to create clean energy, low carbon future, and the city hosted a marketing campaign surrounded around heat pump water heaters. The day asking residents to take a picture of your selfie of your heat pump water heater and share it so that we can post it on social media. Again, it's not too late to get your selfie to us. Just check it out, hashtag it to Palo Alto Heat Pump Water Heater HPWH selfie, and or hashtag Heat Pump Up. And we'll be more than glad to put those up on the website portions. A little bit about our hydro conditions. They're predicting a strong El Nino this year, which may result in warmer and wetter weather for the watersheds. Palo Alto on the hydroelectric generation and water average generation. Likewise, the storage in the regional water system is in good shape going into the rainy season. October 1 was the official start date of the water for the year, and the staff will provide updates throughout the winter on how we're doing with hydro. So we're hoping for another great weather so that winter that we can, again, take advantage of the hydro as we move forward. Just around energy prices compared to this time last year, the state gas storage is in better shape, and forward gas prices have come down to about $2 per BTU. So the winter gas bills and wholesale electric costs will hopefully be back to normal range that we've seen in the past for in the wintertime. In accordance to the council direction, staff did purchase some insurance against the pricing for the hedging that we'll talk about later today or tonight about how that program actually works and how it comes about. Just some upcoming events. November the 2nd, there was a gardening and online workshop. November the 11th, there's multi-EV financing incentive with EV expos at Mitchell Park. And then November the 16th is EV charging online workshop that we have. And then December 2nd, we have another EV 102 online workshop. And with that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Batcher. Were there any questions on his report? One quick question. You said the added funding was for 6 months. When does that date end?
Let's see. Is that October? Is that like April timeframe? I think I'll have to get back to you, but I believe it's around April timeframe because it started October 1st. So 6 months from that period of time.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to new business then. Item 1 is a discussion of the utilities annual report for fiscal year 23. Are there any public comments?
This is Janelle Camion, Program Assistant. If anyone from the public would like to speak on item number 1, please raise your hand or dial *9 on your phone. No hands raised.
Thank you. Is there any kind of presentation for this?
So staff doesn't have a presentation for this. This is, the fourth quarter basically update for, and we talked about that in the future, and we're bringing this back, that we would talk about this fourth quarter one as a whole. We didn't make a presentation. We were going to leave it up to the commission to ask questions and any kind of follow-ups that you might have. It's more of an informational report, but again, like we talked about, that we wanted to bring the last one to the commission for any kind of comments or follow-ups.
Are there any initial questions? Yep.
In your report, you referenced the good progress you're making on recruiting, which is excellent. And with the help of 3 internal folks in your department, which I think is absolutely terrific. There and later in the report, you talked about getting, there was 3 staffers for the, the interim, see, what am I trying to say? The fiber. You needed assistant director and so on. And then the IT guy is going to be our interim director there. And you referenced the 24 budget where you would request that. And I think you did, and it was approved, correct?
That is correct. Matter of fact, we did some interviews today we are not quite ready yet to look for the director's position. So what we did was we decided that we should do the manager, telecom manager position, since it has been in the budget and it's always been in the budget for probably for the last 6-7 years. It's been there. But we decided that since that position was there, we didn't want to add a bunch of extra headcount since we're really not yet moving forward on the fiber pilot. We're waiting for CEQA, as well as we're waiting on the grid mod to go at the same time. But we do think, though, that we need a telecom manager to kind of set up some of the contracts that's going to be needed. And we started that process today, and we should conclude the interviews tomorrow for that position.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Now, I think just to make the discussion a little easier, why don't we just go in the same order that the report was given? So starting with staffing, which is convenient. If anyone has any staffing questions, and then we'll move to the electric utility from there. So are there any other staffing related questions?
Well, first of all, despite the fact that we lost the DOE solicitation, the impression I got from reading the report that we were pretty successful in getting grants, winning lawsuits, and generally getting money in the door. So that seemed really good. On the staffing, I just had the broad question, what's being done to improve it? It looks like from the data in the table that it's kind of at about the same place in terms of vacancies that it was last time. So just what's, do we understand the root causes of it, and what are we doing to try to get past it?
So if I heard your question right, Commissioner, was around the grid mod? And around staffing around that grid mod portion of it?
Yeah, particularly in electric operations.
And
engineering. We seem to be in about the same place.
I think that we've actually gained in that area. We've been very fortunate, with the last SEIU contract. We were able to get some compensation for those hard to fill positions. We are bringing linemen on. Strangely, that it's good. It's great news on the lineman class. We were down to about 4 linemen most of last year, and we've picked up 6 over the last in this year's budget timeframe, or from January to November at this period of time. And we were able to. Starting as November the 13th is our last hire for our system operator. So we are going to be going to a 24/7 operation. We're going to take it back from PD. So we actually have 5 full-fledged operators, and we have 1 operator that's still in training, and he'll be moving into his 2nd year around the January-February timeframe. So we figured that since we've got 5 operators, we are going to move 24/7. We are debating amongst ourselves from a staff's perspective about should we have 24/7 over the weekend? And that's something that we're looking at. And we do have the capabilities with 5 that we can do 365 if we wanted to. So it's just an internal thought process. Does it really make the most sense? Now, maybe during the winter time, it definitely makes sense, I believe. I don't know about the summertime, but again, we're working those details out as this last operator comes on board. So good news for us that we'll be taking that back over 100%. We did put in the OMS system. It seems to be working very well with that. So it's actually helping the operators spending more time on the desk when there is an outage, and not worrying about how many calls are coming in, what kind of calls are we receiving, and where the areas are. The maps seem to be working well for us, so it predicts it automatically now for us. So I think if I was concerned in one area, it's still the engineering group. We were able to hire 3 3 engineers that just came out of college, and they're learning quickly. And they're moving through becoming, engineers on basis. They've been here now for just about a year and a half now. So, but we do still have openings. We did have we had another engineer leave us a couple months ago that was fully trained. But we are trying to see if we can refill that with someone that's more senior than going right directly to the college portion of it. But I am a little concerned that we have 2 engineering positions that are open. We also have 2 senior positions that are open. We did fill, as I mentioned in the past, we did recently fill the electric manager's position that had been open for quite some time with somebody that has about 27 years worth of experience. So we feel that there's good leadership moving forward in that area. And I think that so some of the critical positions that we have called out in the past, we've been able to do some recruitments in those areas, and it's been pretty positive at this point.
Thank you.
I guess I recall from a couple meetings ago, I think it was, that you guys had done a survey of the staff to see what might be reasons for difficult hiring or people leaving. Did you guys find any, at that point you hadn't analyzed it?
Yeah, we are analyzing it. We have not got to that as of yet. The plan is, as you know, for us to analyze it and then share it with all of you. But we're a little bit behind on that. We have not fully analyzed everything that came through. So we had about 50%. So there's about 255 employees. Well, let me take that back. There's 255 approved positions. Taking out these numbers here, so there's about 210, 215 actual filled. So we got about half of that. So we got a little bit over 100 employees that actually took the survey, which we thought that was actually really good. So don't have those answers quite yet for you.
Question on the packet page 13, the capital improvement plan status for the electric utility. I was just curious, with the list of projects, which of these would you say are sort of like directly grid modernization projects that sort of have come about with the city's recent commitment to upgrading in order to electrify, and which ones are just sort of business as usual? Does that question make sense?
Yes. So the very first one, the East Meadow Circuit 412 kV conversion, that's definitely number 1. And that's what we've been working on from an internal standpoint. We did just recently get our new dock crew, our new contractor on board. They're called VIP. They're out of Canada. And from all indications, they're actually doing really good work out there for us. So this 4 to 12 kV, this is close to Colorado. And this is actually where we chose to do the first phase on the electric grid mod, as well as this is the first place that where fiber is going to be going as well too. So important piece is that 412 kV. And as I mentioned in the past, the Magellan, who got bought by Intrust, is an electric design house. And that's who we're working with, because we felt that since they already have the internal information, detailed information of the fiber design, that they can overlay that into this electric design pretty easy. And so that's why we went there. The other one that you look down, if you go down to 19004 wood pole replacement, in the first area, not just in the pilot area that we chose, but if you look in that first, I don't have a map with me, but I can send out a map again. But if you look at the very big square that went from basically East Bay Shore all the way up to Alma, there's about 1,300 poles that have to be replaced in that area. for different reasons. Some are due to replacement age wise. Some of them need to grow in size because they're in backyard easements and there's not enough spacing between to add fiber onto the height limits. So that is important. This is the first 50 poles in the small square that we looked at. And then the 60 kV breaker replacement has really nothing to do with the grid mod. It's just updates. So it's really basically wood poles and the 4 to 12 kV areas that we're looking at.
Thanks, that's super helpful. And then both of those that you called out, I note, are delayed because of staffing shortages. Is that the engineering positions you were just talking about?
Some of it is, yes, some of it is around the engineering. And then also we were waiting on this VIP contract to go through. They are on board now. They came in back in the middle of the month of October. So they will be actually doing a lot of heavy lifting on the 50 poles. And we're actually gonna increase this really to about 100 poles that we're gonna get to.
Thanks.
And then just to, it has nothing to do with the grid mod, but Foothill rebuilt that 11 miles that we talk about. We are above Foothill Park now, which is about half of the 11 miles is undergrounded. And we have switched it over to the underground system, which has fiber as well in the conduits. We are going to leave the overhead line in just in case if there's an emergency situation that we have to switch it back, then we'll have the line until we get to the rest. Expected date on that is somewhere late spring, right at summertime in 24, and we'll be all the way up and then we'll de-energize the overhead. So we're going to have to watch it over this next winter coming up here, but by next winter, it'll be at 100% underground. So we're hoping with that. The good news about that is that when we put that job out to bid, it was a build design. So they designed it and also built it. Cheapest price that we found on it was $25 million to do this 11 miles. Right now, to date, we've spent 1.3 doing it in-house. So huge savings. Crews are doing a great job on this. We do have a small contract with the contractor that's just doing the dirt work of installing the conduits. So we think that this cost will look like about $3 million at the end of the day. So like I said, kudos to the crews as well as to this contractor that's working this line for us.
With the way you have it now, where you still have the above ground, if there were weather issues that you had to turn it off, would you be able to switch to the underground and keep power on?
Yes. So right now, all the underground section is at a switch. So if we lost that overhead section from that switch going up the hill towards Skyline, those customers will be out. Right now, if the weather conditions and a tree fell, broke the line below the switch line where the switch is, customers are still going to be in service at that point.
I have two questions on packet page 14. So on figure 3, is there a comparable figures for commercial use? Average commercial use, would that be our median commercial use, how the rates would compare between us and PG&E and Santa Clara? And could that be included if it's relevant, if there is a relevant measure?
Hi, Carla Daly, Assistant Director, and I want to introduce Eric Wong, Resource Planner, my colleague who is the architect of this report, although many, many staff contribute to it. Eric, please chime in. Generally, commercial customers are difficult to find averages. They're just so varied in types of customer and size of customer that we don't put that out generally, but can you talk about that a little bit?
Hi. So generally, customers right now for gas is paying a little bit more compared to PG&E. Right now, we're going through a cost of service study that you will evaluate how we compare to PG&E. And the result will, after the result, then we'll publish the report in this report.
Well, I was asking about electricity, not gas.
That's gas.
He was asking about electricity.
Figure 3, electricity bill comparison.
I'm not sure, but we'll try to get it included in this report in future reports.
I'm sorry, what?
We'll try to get it included in future reports.
Okay.
For
Is it
electricity.
follow, I assume, generally the same pattern as this, where we're less expensive than PG&E, but more expensive than Santa Clara? Again, since it's 80% of the load, it would seem important to understand some of the economics at work.
I think that that's true, but if you'll let us get the numbers for you to make sure before I
Okay.
say something that
That
might
would
be
be fine.
wrong.
And my second question is maybe a higher level question is, why is Santa Clara so much cheaper than we are? I kind of understand why we're cheaper than PG&E, I think, although it's quite possible I'm confused, but why are they typically 30 to 50% cheaper?
I mean, one reason is they just have a really different customer base. They have a lot of very, very large commercial loads, and that's a lot less expensive to serve.
So the commercial loads get lower cost base load power, so they have a flatter load curve during the day or across the year?
And the whole system is just less expensive to run. You have fewer connections, just a lot less expensive to run a system like that.
Okay. Thanks. I would like to see that commercial comparison.
Sure.
I have a question on the tables that are included for electric, gas, and water that are about the number of breaks, the minutes, the customers affected. And I don't have any complaints or concerns about it, but just a suggestion would be to trend it over a longer period of time, because just having the quarters, I'm unable to see like any measure of the reliability over the long term of our system. So it just might be helpful to see that, to know if we should ask questions about that.
So these quarters were actually asked by the commission to look at on a quarterly basis. And so they wanted to see how we did from quarter to quarter. And then we took it even a step further and said, well, what are we going to compare this to? And we thought that what we would do is we compared to last year's quarter for each of the quarters. Because what we did was we were doing 6 months, and we're just showing we were only doing a 6-month comparison against ourselves. And again, the commission asked for quarterly basis. So
Okay.
we can go back if the commission would prefer.
I don't have the history of seeing these numbers over time, so I have no idea if these, it just, when I see the capital improvement projects or any kind of delays because of staff shortage, and I see these numbers, I just have no idea if they're good numbers, or I know with the electricity side that there's the standard, the standard 4 metrics that we can, like I compared them to PG&E and they look really good, right? Palo Alto looked good on the electricity side, but on gas and water, I have no idea, like number of breaks. I don't know. It seems like we should compare ourselves to ourselves just to trend over time, but I'm not concerned about it. Just was a suggestion.
So I guess when we've looked at the reliability aspect, we've really never broke it down from a gas and electric, or I'm sorry, a gas and a water reliability, from breaks to breaks or gas leaks to gas leaks. And we've always looked in this report as electric reliability was the key. And that's why you see, these 4 items, and these are 4 items that every utility uses as standard against that. But we have not done it so much. The
numbers are very small. So I have to, and I don't think I've ever experienced an outage of either of the others. So I will just, I'm fine with this unless the commission decides they want to see more.
If I may, it seems like Director Batchelor, you're responding to the fact that it's broken down in quarters, but I think it's possible that the request is for more years. Like all we see is 22 and 23. And listening to you and the desire for trends, you might want to see 21 and 20 and 19 and 18 to just get a sense of a
Yeah.
longer time span.
You're looking at a different table than I am, so.
You're
I'm
looking
just-
at gas.
Yeah, I
table.
know. So it's
Oh.
electric. Okay, so the electric one is on page 15.
Yep. And it's the same thing. It's 22 and 23.
Yeah, same. No, my comment was for all the electric, gas, water,
Yeah.
was just to see if there were any kind of trends that we could see if our reliability
like
is getting
that's-
better.
That's not opposed, like you can do quarterly and have a farther look
Right.
back and make, so it's not, I don't think the request is to do something different than what the previous commission has asked for.
Maybe it's just to
It's
go
to do
back
even
further.
more.
You
Go
just-
further.
Right,
Let's
I
go
think
further
so.
back.
So what you're asking then is for a 5-year trend going back 4 or 5 years?
That would definitely be sufficient. It could just even be this table taken backwards a little while or a line. But it might be easiest to just use the same table and go backward, since all those are probably in the reports you've seen before.
I think if I could, I don't know if I'm going to help her complicate it, but if the idea is to see, as we invest in the infrastructure, to see, this is one way to measure whether those investments are having impact. It's one of many different measurements, but it's one way to see as we upgrade different infrastructure, then presumably they should go down.
Or even just maintenance is, are you effectively maintaining and do we have any concerns about that? Yeah.
Fair enough. I did have one other question on just the electric side, which even though the numbers are low, it does seem to be the trend. But 2023 was, there were many more outages in 22. And I don't know if it was the weather or what, but if we're expecting another wet year, what do you anticipate for this coming season?
Well, I would hope to say 0, but no, I think the thing is that, we looked hard because 21 and 22 did not look good. We had quite a few outages in those 2 years. And part of that is that we kind of went backwards on tree trimming. So we took a proactive approach that in 23 that we definitely went out, spent quite a lot of money on tree trimming. We moved forward again into this year's budget. And we're trimming about as much trees as we can. And we think that, the majority of the outages that we saw last year was due to trees. There was some electrical pieces that failed on us. But I think, though, that what we saw was the tree trimming definitely helped, and it helped our numbers in 23. We think that we're pretty sure that we're going to see same kind of numbers moving forward.
I'm sorry, are we done with electricity? If we're
Oh,
not,
I was just going to ask any other questions on electricity, or we'll move on to gas.
I had one question on electricity. I'm not sure this is exactly a CPAU question. This is packet page 42, in talking about the heat pump water heater installations. It sounds like they're already uncovering quite a number of, common problems across, a small number of installations so far, but a significant number of problems. Is this CPAU's problem, or, it seems like we all need to address it somehow to, if we're to electrify heating and hot water? I guess the question is kind of who owns this, and is it as pervasive as this early data makes it sound?
Sorry, I'm trying to find exactly where you are in the report, but what we
It's
found is
Packet
that,
page 42.
right. I think, Palo Alto has a lot of older homes and a lot of really unique homes. And so the idea that we just have a lot of standard installations with no tricky wiring setups has proved to not be as common as we would have hoped it would have been when we set up the program. So we've just encountered a lot of non-standard installations, and I think that's a direct result of just the housing stock in this community.
Right, I think I understand that. You kind of expect it with the mature housing stock that we have, as you said. But I guess the question is, who owns addressing that? I mean, does this call into question the whole idea of electrification? If that's going to be, super expensive and energy intensive to do? Who owns addressing it and how do we address it?
Well, I think we as a community need to address it, and we're learning a lot from this program and thinking about how to apply what we're learning to a longer term, not just heat pump water heater program, but whole home electrification program. And so we're taking all of these lessons into account and how we're thinking about the programs and how we'll design them in the future.
If I can help to tell you what it says, because maybe we can, because you're speaking, you don't have the benefit of seeing what it says. It says a number of challenging heat pump water heater installations that includes long circuit runs, electrical panels without additional capacity, complex condensate management, and water heater relocation requirements.
So I think if I could add to Carla's comments, is that I think it's really CPAU as well as the city as a whole. Through the SCAP committees, they talk about the goal that they set for the 1,000 heat pump water heaters. And they've been talking to council about some of the challenges that they've come against. But I also think that there is areas of improvement around just communications and getting the word out to the customers more than what we do today. And that's why we've hired another consulting firm that does more communications, so a little bit more familiar with this type of installs, as well as some of these challenges. I think that the big thing is that, we were talking from internal staff, and we were talking about how do we get the word out? How do we've worked on social media. We put it in our bill inserts. So one of the ideas was using the field service representatives that go out to your homes for gas leaks. Right now is going to be one of their busier times of the year where they're going to relight pilots. They're also checking stoves for the holidays that have people that have gas stoves. They always want their burners running well and their ovens as well. And so we're creating a flyer so that when one of these individuals come out to a home, that they can drop this flyer off, talk a little bit about the program. If there's questions that come up, we're doing more stakeholder meetings with the community as we talk about smart grid and fiber in the areas. We're also making a pitch about whole electric. Since we're out there upgrading their areas, they should know, what some of these incentives are that can take advantage of today. So I think to answer your question is, it's really basically the city as well as CPAU that has ownership to setting this goal and trying to meet these goals that we set.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I can give,
Go on.
on the same topic, I had seen that as well, that 440 interest forms were submitted, 147 site assessments were made, and 16 installations were completed. I kind of had the same question, like there's so much drop off at each step. I guess the question is, with the 440 interest forms submitted and 147 site assessments, why are the site assessments not more? I just went through this myself, and one of the things is the immediate thing they do is they send you a DocuSign. And so I kind of held off on the DocuSign because I thought, well, I might have some questions before I just sign and have someone come to my house. But eventually I just signed it and then someone came. But do you have knowledge of the reason for the drop off at each step?
Yeah, I think, part of it is that, we're using an installer to basically do these home installs. And one of the things that we've talked about is that, first of all, we need more installers. We need to open it up to other installers with the same type of program that we offer a company that we're working with today. My personal feeling is that they don't have enough resources, and I think that that's part of the drop off. The other thing is that exactly what you're talking about. The process is cumbersome. It is, as you say, you have to do the DocuSign before they contact you. Why? Why can't they just, if you sign up, then what we should be doing is we should be calling you, setting up an appointment, because that's what you're asking for. You're looking for the interest if you want to get into this program, or you may not. But, a live body a warm body needs to actually come to the homes. One of the things that also, at the end, we send you a survey about how'd your experience go. Well, again, that I think, though, that's okay, but we survey the community for every little survey we want. And so my feeling is, and I've stressed this to the SCAP committee, that we really need to have actually someone come back out and actually contact you, find out when you're going to be home, or maybe it's just over the phone, but it's actually a live call that we can learn from. And because from what I've seen so far, there's definitely some learning, but I don't think that we're getting the whole story about really what's going on. I mean, I've heard it from most of you that have tried to and gone through heck to try to get folks to actually come out and actually get it done for you, and the length of periods of time. And, I hear these horror stories, and so I think we have to change our ways. And that's one of the ideas that, as we would be able to, I mean, we've even talked to, and the city manager has given us somewhat of a direction that, he really wants to see us expand this out to even, why is it that a plumber in Palo Alto that works strictly in Palo Alto, and I've used them personally. If I live here all the time, I'm comfortable with that person. Why can't I go through them? Why can't I go through someone that I know that is able to be able to do this for me in a quicker period of time? Or maybe it's an electrician that I know that can help me with my electrical piece and get my plug working, and then, go through that. So we are looking at different changes to this program as it sits today.
I think those things you said are spot on with my experience. So it seems to me like it would be very hard to get this if your water heater broke down. So like the urgent need or the opportunity to upgrade because of that would be hard to do with these guys, because they're just not that fast. My impression is that they need like you said, they need like a customer relationship manager, someone who will, so for me, they came in and we kind of discussed the two places it could go, and then they got stumped and they never got back to me. So I kept bugging them, and I was like, why hasn't, it was like 2 or 3 weeks. And so after bugging them a couple times, they said, well, it won't work because, the distance between the fence and where the current water heater is not big enough. And I said, well, we discussed the basement where the old water heater was as well, but they had lost that thread. And so they had to send someone out again. And it felt like, and they had just gotten stumped, but they hadn't told me. And I feel like we need a vendor that won't get stumped. They are going to figure something out, and they're going to help the resident figure it out. So once I got the quote, it's very expensive, but I'm still willing to consider it. But I still have lots of questions, and it just feels like it's not really. I don't have a person that can put a call on my calendar. Sometimes they just call out of the blue. I'm like, I'm not gonna, have to put it on my calendar. Right? So those things that you said, I think, are right on, but I do support the thought of both having follow-up by a person and also opening it up to other vendors that have more throughput or just different capabilities in terms of just commitment to getting it done.
Yeah, I think that, the downfall is one of the downfalls is, if the water heater goes out tonight, you're not waiting, as much time as you are now. Even though that we try to push those customers up front, but that's still usually about a 5 to 7 day period of time. And when you have a family, are you going to take cold showers for 7 days? I don't think so. And so, there has to be a way that we can send, and I think that this is where if we had more installers, then we'd be able to send, have quicker response periods. And I don't think maybe we won't see as many drop-offs as we see today. So we are working on that and trying to address how we can be much more efficient, and also what kind of changes do we need to move the program forward? Because I think that we're going to have the same problems than if we just go into the whole home, or even just trying to change out furnaces, if it's going to be this type of length of period of time.
One other thought, because I'm in the same morass. I mean, and now I'm supposed to schedule my third visit because they lost the photos and they couldn't figure it out, and now they still don't know. And maybe we know we have these problems that are listed on this report, and maybe it's thinking about a second vendor who, or some kind of flow chart. If you have one of these problems, you get to do X, Y, Z, or there's a different expert or something. And maybe the person we're using now is more comfortable with more of a routine kind of a replacement, and maybe that's part of the problem. But yeah, it's been super slow. I just got an email today saying, well, is it urgent? Can you wait longer?
No, I can't.
And I can. I mean, I don't, thankfully, I don't have a broken water heater, but I'd love to take advantage of the discount, and if, at the rate we're going, I
Right.
don't know. Okay, that's probably all on water heaters. Any other electric utility questions or comments? Oh, I think we moved, okay, we'll move on to gas. Maybe we already had. Any gas?
Yeah, very simple question about figure 12. It's on page 23. Does the comparison of gas rates, does the Palo Alto rate, does that include the rebate, or is that before the rebate? So obviously I think that makes a huge difference. So it says FY 2023 Palo Alto at the median usage of 402 therms is 1,064, PG&E 930. We're higher than PG&E for that rare for the whole year, but it seemed like it was only that 1 month that we were actually higher, and then we rebated that back. Does my question make sense?
Sorry, we have packet page 23 or report page 23?
It's packet page 23, report page 20. Figure 12.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, it does include the rebate.
So that's after the rebate, we were still higher on the annual average than PG&E?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see, couple of questions. Packet page 17 refers to a letter that Mayor Koo sent to Governor Newsom to support the request for a federal investigation. What happened? Is there a federal investigation? Is a few months later far too soon to ask for the results of a federal investigation?
Yes. Yeah, it'll probably be a couple of years at least.
But there will be a federal investigation.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we got that far, but then it's going to take a couple years. Next question, which I don't know if there's a question so much as and maybe it's just a comment, because there's been a lot in the news lately about carbon offsets and greenwashing and some sort of expose journalism around the whole topic, which I have people asking me, what's the point of Palo Alto's carbon offset? So I was happy to see the table on package page 21 that's listing them out specifically. And I guess, could you help us, or maybe just me, like, how do we respond to that? Like, here are these projects. How do we know that they are for real and high quality and not greenwashing, especially, yeah, actually, I'll just stop the question there.
Right. I guess I would say that there are folks that just don't like offsets, period. So there's that. But we, in designing this program and in council approving it, really tried to think through how we could make sure that these are the highest quality offsets possible. And so really adopted all of the same parameters that CARB uses for compliance offsets, because compliance entities subject to cap and trade can use offsets for a portion of that obligation. These offsets that we buy meet all of those criteria minus that very last extra CARB certification to be used for compliance. Since we are not using these for compliance reasons, we are using them on a voluntary basis, self-imposed program by the City of Palo Alto Council. And so in theory, all of these offsets could go through that one additional step, become compliance eligible. That would cost a little bit more money. It doesn't really make any sense to spend that extra money, but these are in fact offsets that are being taken off the table for someone else to potentially use them for compliance in California under the cap and trade program. So all of the protocols, all of the vintage requirements, those all mirror the CARB requirements.
Can you give some examples of what are the compliance requirements that CARB uses?
Well, one example is just the project types. And so we don't buy from project types that aren't CARB approved, like, and they have to be in the US. So, replacing somebody's hibachi with some portable induction cooktop. I mean, that's not an approved protocol. In theory, that is an offset generator, but that's not approved by CARB. It doesn't go through the registries, the 3 registries that CARB relies upon. And so these are the forestry projects and all of the rules that are laid out by what has to happen in that forestry project for that offset to be potentially cap and trade compliance ready are all the same requirements that we follow for the offsets that we purchase.
So on some level, we place our faith in the California Air Resources Board that they have high standards and that if we copy them,
Yes.
then that's
yes.
Which I'm not complaining,
Yeah.
I'm just rephrasing.
Yeah, and the 3 registries that they rely upon to verify these offsets.
Is that the sort of third party verification? Is that what you're saying,
Yes.
the registries?
Mhm.
I see, okay. All right, final question, if I may. Speaking of cap and trade, I was reading that we're required, let me refresh my memory here, package page 21 and 22, I think. That the utility is required to auction gas utility allowances. And there are funds that come from that auction that we have to spend in certain ways. So does that mean we have an over allocation of allowances, or do we have to buy allowances also? Help us understand that. Like that's the
It's
part
really
that,
confusing.
Yeah.
So there's a few different moving parts with cap and trade. There's we have an obligation as a gas utility to cover all of our greenhouse gas emissions with allowances. A certain percentage, tiny percentage can be offsets, but let's just say for simplicity's sake, it's all allowances. And at the same time, at the same time, we get a certain number of free allowances given to us. That number goes down every year over time. And of the amount that we are given, we can use a certain percentage of that to cover our compliance obligation. And that number also goes down over time, percentage-wise. And the balance of that we have to sell back into the auction. We can take that revenue and use it for sustainability type projects. We can even give it back to the customers, but we can't give it back to the customers based on their volumetric usage. So it has to be spread out evenly over customers if it's to be given back to them, which is what PG&E does when folks on PG&E's service territory get their climate credit every year. That's not based on how much gas they used. It's just spread out over all the residential customers. We don't do that. We keep that money and put it to good use in accordance with the guidelines that council has approved for how to use that money.
But then we also have to buy allowances on the allowance market?
Yes, we still have to cover our full burn of usage. So whatever, minus whatever we've been able to apply from our free allowances, we still have to go back out and buy the balance.
In terms of, is it about the same amount of money that we earn from selling our?
It was at the beginning of the program,
Okay.
and it's getting more and more expensive, which is how the program is designed.
And the allowances have to cover our CO2 emissions?
Yes,
And that is for?
all the gas burned within the boundaries of Palo Alto.
So that's sort of, there's nothing we can do about that. It is what it is. As opposed to like the electric portfolio can be, you can choose more carbon intensive and less carbon intensive sources. Natural gas, our need for allowances to cover it is always just going to be based on our gas usage.
Correct.
Okay. And it doesn't take like leakage or anything into account.
No.
Like, I guess
it's
the question is
just
there any
sales.
incentive for us to do anything to our infrastructure in order to have a lower allowance requirement?
It's based on sales, right?
It's based on sales.
Yeah. No, but there's incentive to encourage efficiency and electrification.
Sure, right, yep. That's it for my gas questions, thank you.
That caused me to think of another question, which is we always talk about the ratio of electricity that's used by commercial. What's the breakdown in the gas use, commercial versus residential?
Top of your head. Percentage gas use, commercial versus residential. I should know that off the top of my head. It's definitely higher residential relative to electric. I don't have that number right off the top of my head.
And do we have, I'm assuming that all of the efforts that we're doing for commercial customers, there's, we have new coding, for new buildings, but for current commercial customers, is that part of the exercise, is getting them off of gas?
Absolutely. It's harder though, in a lot of cases. So, but yes, we have programs focused on trying to partner particularly with our largest customers to figure out, mutual goals. A lot of those large customers have their own sustainability goals. And so we're actively trying to build those relationships and speak not just with their facilities managers, who are the folks we've traditionally talked to, but really talk to their sustainability managers, talk to their CFOs, talk to the people who are really making decisions about big changes at their facilities. So on our roadmap, for sure, it's a longer road.
And do we have visibility on, I think it seems pretty clear what residential people are using their gas for, but on the commercial side, is it the same as electricity where we just don't know, what are the uses, or is it pretty clear in the commercial side what they're using it for and like what the targets could be?
Yeah, Mostly in Palo Alto, we don't have big industry here, so it is mostly space heating still. We've got a number of hotels in town that have fairly large boilers, and I think we have a pretty good handle of what they're using it for. They're just big, expensive projects to do something different. Did you find that number?
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, for the gas.
Oh, turn on your mic.
For the gas usage is about 55% commercial and 45 residential. Thanks.
Thank you.
We can move on to water. Okay, and wastewater?
Lauren,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, Megan, I thought you
have
might have something.
several water questions, so thank you
Excellent.
for humoring me. The so thank you for putting together the water report, and it was fun to see the additional supplement this quarter. I wanted to ask a couple of questions about consumption estimates going forward. So currently we have consumption that is below the projected consumption, and so it looks, if I'm reading this correctly, like we are short somewhere around $6 million this year. Is that correct? If I recall correctly from my notes.
Do you have a packet page we could look at to follow
I am
along?
so sorry. I did not write down the packet page number in these notes, but I should be able to pull that up shortly. Basically, we're consuming less water as a community than we projected, and so somewhere around 29, packet page 28, excuse me. The consumption is below estimates, which means that we have a revenue shortfall this year. And I believe that it has been made up. But I wanted to, okay, so sales forecast, I'm sorry, it's package page 30. So we're 11.3% lower than budgeted in revenues for FY23 because of water conservation. And I'm actually just very curious about whether we have any historic data on rebound in the water sector here in Palo Alto, and whether we expect that to rebound and over what time period we expect that to rebound.
That's a good timely question. We're just starting to work on our financial plans for next fiscal year. Eric, do you have anything preliminary you can share about that, or? No, we're not really prepared to talk about that quite yet. I would
Okay.
say, yeah, you're right. We're looking at rebound. We're looking at how we've rebounded over these past few months and assessing how to project that moving forward in our financial plans.
Okay, it may be helpful to look at past rebound, but also given the kind of both depths of drought and also some of the incentive programs and mandates to curtail that, there's often I think very slow rebound in the water sector, and so we should be conscious of that when projecting. I'm curious too about how we would close that gap and whether that would likely to come through increased rates or simply delaying maintenance. Do you have any thoughts there, or is that part of what you're in the process of evaluating? Like, will you be focusing on reducing costs or raising
So
rates?
it's funny that you bring this up because we just had some internal conversations a few days ago about this, and we're talking about where can we look at, and from an internal standpoint, just looking at saving dollars. The thing is that we talked also about looking at possibly doing, so there's, I think it was 26, 27, we're talking about rehabbing 2 more of our reservoirs. And so we may look at doing some bond financing on that, on those two projects. Maybe taking a little bit of debt, because otherwise, we're gonna have to start seeing much larger increases. So we are looking at what those expenses are. We do not want to cut back on the maintenance at all on the system, but we are looking at, does it make sense to maybe spread out the size of the CIP? That may be what we would do for typically $8-9 million this year. Maybe what we should look at is maybe doing a 4-year and then spreading that increase over a 2-year timeframe, so that we would not have these large increases to offset these losses that we've seen.
Okay. I have 2 other or 3 other questions. One is very brief. You are planning a number of seismic resilience upgrades, and I think that's really important. I would recommend that you include seismic resilience explicitly in your goals as a water utility. It is not listed in a goal as a goal, and it would be very helpful.
Typically set CIP goals, do we do? No. Yeah, no.
So 2 other quick things. Backflow prevention was listed as one of the areas that needed improvement. I'm curious what fraction of individual users or customers have backflow prevention devices in the system?
So right now that we're tracking close to 6,000 backflow devices in the system, about 400, 500 of those are city owned. So about 5,500 backflow devices. And, we usually set the goal. Well, of course, we want 100% of them inspected on a yearly basis. But we come up short on this every year. It's right around 90-91% of those are actually physically where the customer actually calls and actually does the inspection. It is the customer's responsibility, and we are thinking that we are going to change the program. There's some neighboring cities that do things a little bit differently, and we've been talking a little bit more about possibly maybe being a little bit more involved in taking over the testing aspects of the backflows.
I think personally, I think that would be a wonderful change because of the burden of compliance and the efficiencies that come from doing that in-house. I am also curious, if you choose to keep it as it currently stands, can you just help me understand how many individual customers you have? And so what fraction of those are required to do a backflow prevention test every year?
So it's about a quarter. It's about a quarter of the system of customers actually have to have a backflow at this point. But there are rules being changed, and it's going to get to the point where we think that it's going to get to 100%. Everybody's going to have a backflow on their home, but we'll see where legislation takes this. That's why we think that we may want to redesign the program and charge the customer separately on their bill for the testing aspect, and then any kind of repairs or replacements would be on them to do those repairs. We may not do repairs or replacements.
Sure. And in the interim, I mean, given that there's only a 25% right now of customers actually are required to do backflow prevention testing, I'm wondering, and I could be wrong about this, but my recollection was that it was more standard to have tests every 3 years instead of every year. Is that correct, or am I just misremembering?
From what,
At like an EPA level recommendation.
right. From what I've heard from the water folks and looking at the rule had changed that it's on a yearly basis.
I have one more just quick question. I've raised the point in the past that it would be advantageous to make immediate use of any AMI data to further improve leak detection, which of course is non-revenue water, or to target wasteful water use. And I'm wondering whether there's any progress within the water department in terms of setting up a visualization or analysis of AMI metering data as it does become available to us, especially in the water space, I think, where we have a budgetary shortfall.
We are actively working with WaterSmart and our AMI vendor to make sure that those systems are talking to each other and that we can deploy the leak detection features of WaterSmart using our AMI data as soon as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
That was actually, can I ask a question? A question I had, since you're talking about AMI, I'll just ask it now. Does the city currently receive the data from the meters that are in place? Or are we still in the process of getting those connected?
So we do have about 2 meter read routes up and running with all 3 devices. And we are receiving that data over the collectors. And then we're also still doing those routes by hand, just to make sure that we're making sure that the reads are correct. And right now it shows that that these meters that we've got put in place have been reading properly from an AMI standpoint. So we do have, and we're tracking, it's about, I'd say about right around 800 meters right now that are fully deployed, electric, water, and gas. And then we have a few more water, we have a few more gas. We're still trickling in electric meters from the supply chain issues that we've had, but we think that AMI will be fully launched by second fiscal quarter next year. So somewhere around that October timeframe. So about a year from now, it's going to take us that, unless we get a whole bunch of electric meters in, it's all surrounding what that supply looks like.
And who is the AMI vendor? And are they going to provide the software as well? Or what is the software situation?
Yeah, where's Dave?
Yeah. Can you guys see me? I don't know.
No, but
Good evening. Can you see me now or hear me?
Oh, yep. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. Yeah, this is Dave Yun, Utility Strategic Business Manager. So for the AMI network, we are using Census, and we are still using Badger meters. We're just using their endpoints to add on to the meter to make it AMI capable. We're using also SmartWorks Compass as the MDM system, which will also track the leak alerts. Like Carla said, that we are trying to get out the leak alerts as soon as possible with WaterSmart. We're hoping in the first quarter of 2024, that should be available for folks who have AMI meters. So they will be able to see their interval consumption by hour and also get weak alert detections if they subscribe to it.
And will, I don't know who's doing the collection and then, what database you might have, but from a customer perspective, would we access it like we access WaterSmart, where it comes through our utility portal and the data is in you guys are working on a report format or something like that so we can see the data real time?
Yes, it will come from the WaterSmart portal. They can download it and see the interval and the leak alerts. It will be near real time, will be a 1-day delay. But the leak alert should come the same day though. For the interval data, it'll be a day later.
Is that just for water that's going to be a day later, or is electricity also going to be?
It's all going to be a day later, unfortunately.
All going to be a day later. Okay. That's interesting. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
I had one question about the city wells. This is a sort of technical question. It's packet page 62 about emergency wells. It says city wells were rehabilitated in 2013, but some maintenance is needed. City has begun evaluating adding generators for wells. I thought we had generators on the wells. No, not true?
So we have a few generators on some of the wells, but we don't have it on every well. So we are evaluating what the size of the pumps are compared to what the generation that is that's going to be necessary. And we're going to be coming up with a solution that will actually have on-site generation for every emergency well.
Okay, so some.
But
of
we
them
don't have it
some of them
today.
By generator, we mean a pump with a diesel generator or
Yeah.
something like that. Okay.
Yes, or a small gasoline, because there's some smaller pumps that
Okay.
won't need, some of the larger. Now, the pumps for the water system and and for that portion of it, we do have large generation on site, ready to go. They're large diesel, but at the emergency wells, not all of them yet today.
Right. So, I mean, the point in an emergency, if the only water we have is from the emergency wells, you need the generators to pump that, right?
Yeah,
The system pumps wouldn't get that out of the ground.
No, but
Oh,
what can be
sorry.
done though is today is that if that happened today, what we would end up doing is we would move those large generations, they're on trailers, out of those areas, and then we would bring it to wherever the emergency well is that
I
is
see.
necessary,
Okay.
that we don't have a small generator or the size generator we need.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I go back to one, just to follow up, because I've been thinking about the answer on the 1-day delay. Is there any way that residents would be able to get their data real time? I think.
There is,
Yeah.
oops, sorry. There
Oh,
is a
go
way if they purchase like a Zigbee radio. If we put a Zigbee radio into that meter, then the homeowner could get a device that could get real-time data, but we would have to coordinate with that homeowner because we
Okay.
don't have the Zigbee installed in every meter.
And do you have any indication whether I'm an outlier in being interested in that, or whether that's something that you expect to actually do in the future?
We can't put you on the list right now. There is a shortage of those Zigbee radios, so we actually only have one as a test unit. But I think we're planning on purchasing like 500 of them, so we can put you on the list if you are interested.
And would
Because it
that
will
be a
require some coordination.
temporary? Would that just
No,
be
it'll be
temporary?
permanent.
Oh, it would be, okay. Okay, fantastic,
Yep.
thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, now we'll move on to wastewater. Any wastewater questions?
I did have a question because the wastewater facility is used for so many cities. I was curious to know, just financially, who's on the hook for the improvements? How are those costs shared across the cities that actually use the facility? And so there's like the debt service. I mean, I saw the breakdown of the costs, and I would be interested in an overview of how, I know that they pay usage fees, but how does the uptake or the upkeep of the facility work in terms of who pays for what?
Yeah, I don't know the details on it. I mean, all the partners are on the hook for the upgrades to the plant. And I know that Public Works is starting a process to do a study on the allocation of costs among the partners, because it hasn't been done in a really long time, and obviously things change over time. So they're working on that, but that's driven by Public Works.
I guess I'd be interested because it's in this report and a follow-up, because the graph in terms of the costs, the thing that just really causes it to skyrocket out in 2029 is the debt service. So that's what made me wonder, are all of the cities that use the facility behind the debt and we all are sharing that cost? Or is Palo Alto on the hook for it and then we're getting paid back through the usage fees over time? So
No, I don't believe we are. I think, as Carla mentioned, all the members are on that, and I think it's by the flow of how much actually each city brings to the facility. I think that's how they break it down, but we'll have to get back to you on that.
Commissioner Mater?
Yes, I was excited to note that you, it looks like you're at 90% design for the advanced water purification facility. And I was just wondering whether we have a time in which the UAC will be briefed on the progress by Corolla.
That project is, again, being run by Public Works. We are somewhat interfaced with that, but I don't have an answer for you tonight about the timing on that, and when that will actually be from start to finish, but we can definitely get that answer for you by next meeting.
Thank you.
I think we're on fiber now. Any fiber questions? I had one fiber question, which is I noticed that I thought the revenue was like 2.8 million and expenses were 2.7 million. And I think in the past we've had a bigger, or I have that back. Yeah. The revenue was just slightly more than expenses. And I was wondering if we think that's going to change going forward and if we have a sense of why that was this past year.
Yeah, this is Dave Yen again. Yes, Chair Siegel. In the past, before COVID, I think we did have $1 million revenue over expenses. I think since COVID, a lot of companies had either left the city or they've consolidated connection services. This last year was a little bit odd because that we did have a couple disconnections that we had good records of. So we had to do a back bill adjustment and credit them for the respective date that they disconnected. Going forward, we think we should be getting back to the about $500,000 profit every year, close to maybe $750,000, I think is what we're forecasting right now, as long as there's no new disconnections. So it's slowly ramping up, but I think we should get back to pre-COVID level probably by 2025.
And do you think our rates are appropriate?
Given the amount of reserves we've been getting, we think it is. We haven't really done a cost of service study for a while. So that maybe we'll do it when I guess there's time. Right now, we're all focused on the fiber to the premise, unfortunately. So we haven't spent too much time on the dark fiber rates. But expenses also been going up recently because of the FTT project with the Magellan contract. I think it is about $500,000 to $750,000 higher than normal in the run rate than previous.
Oh, and those expenses are showing up. And so it's not just for the dark fiber, it's also Magellan's fees and anything else is showing up.
Right.
Okay.
I think they're under their contract expenses.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other fiber questions? Okay, then I think we're moving on.
Actually, can I ask one fiber question?
Yep.
Are there, for many of our utilities, there are regulatory constraints on rate setting? Are there, what are the constraints on setting rates for the dark fiber utility?
I don't think there is as restrictive as the other utilities because it's a competitive business, but we can have legal weigh in and follow up with you. But based on our understanding, there isn't as much regulations on that one.
When was the last time we raised rates on the dark fiber utility?
Dark fiber, the EDF3, I think was invoked around 2006 or so, if I have to guess, or 2006 or 2009. It's been a while.
So rates have been flat for those customers since 2006, 2009, somewhere in there.
Yes, but their fees are based on their mileage footage to the connection points. So it is a fixed unit amount, but it varies it depending on the size of the connection.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any customer programs, questions or communications? Let's just put the last three together. Customer programs, communications, or legislative, regulatory and industry activity. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a couple questions on well, I guess the first one is in the Water Smart part of the report, it said that there was a control set of customers who did not have the portal. And then it also said, I think that we're going to start getting mailings in July 2023. Or I guess that would have happened, but is there any data on the active versus the control residences and whether the portal has any effect on usage?
For Palo Alto's experiment, I have not seen results from that yet. I'm not sure when we're expecting that, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay, that would be interesting to see. And then I had a question too about the employers that have remained kind of hybrid or remote that we thought would probably come back. And what kind of usage changes have we seen for those employers that have not fully come back? Are they using a lot less? Or I'm just kind of interested in the efficiencies that they might experience if people aren't here.
I'm not aware of any data that we have and being able to match the hybrid work environment to, knowing who those customers are. Yeah. I don't think we have that data. We don't have that visibility.
Okay, I mean, it seems like if it's enough that it's caused I think it was stated that a pause in facilities, reinvestment and upgrading, that totally makes sense. But it does seem like it also should hopefully reduce energy use. I would think that we would see something there, and just to ask whether any of our programs have any kind of smart building technology in them, because I know that a lot of buildings are, or there's an effort to implement, you don't heat a zone of a building unless people are actually in it, or you don't have the lights on unless people are in it, and things like this, that I wonder if that's part of any of our efficiency programs.
I don't think we do, but we'll have to get back to you on that portion of it. I mean, I think we did see, during that time frame when they went to hybrid, that we saw the commercial and the industrial side, lessen their loads from electrical as well as from a water supply cost. We did see lower usage in those periods of time. And, but I don't know if we'd have to go back and look at individually if there's some increasing in the billing aspects of it, but we can definitely look at it and see. We'll get back to you.
I don't know what the efficiency savings are, but I have read about this in the past, and probably too long ago to remember what the efficiency savings are, but I think they're quite substantial savings that you can achieve with this kind of smart building. And just even, time of day when you go through daylight savings. I used to work at a building where I'd show up early enough in the morning and it's dark outside and the entire building's illuminated and nobody is inside. So it's for sure, if they're 80% of our electricity load, I don't know, I'd be interested in hearing if anybody learns about it within Palo Alto Utilities and decides that it should be part of those programs.
We do have a program where we have a contractor go out and do energy assessments for our large customers. And so, that kind of thing will get daylighted when they go out to do the assessment. But yeah, I don't think we know, especially for smaller businesses, if they're working hybrid type schedules, for us to target those, but it's an interesting idea. Thank you.
Is that contractor Innovity?
Yes.
And what's the relationship with Innovity? How does that work?
Yeah, basically we have a contract with them to go out and do energy assessments for our large customers. They write up a big report. And then we have some rebate money available for different energy efficiency and electrification type projects, and Innovity gets paid for bringing it all together.
So their goal is to kind of go out and find these opportunities?
Yep.
I guess part of the picture I'm getting is we don't have very good visibility from a data point of view into the commercial side, which kind of overall I find a little concerning given the size of it on the electric. Do we have a segmentation like large office, retail, data center? Do we have any way of tracking or getting some visibility? Like it's mentioned here that, it's behind schedule because of higher commercial vacancy rates in the market, but it doesn't sound like we have a quantitative handle on that. We're kind of assume taking anecdotal evidence, or do we, and it's simply not in the report?
Yeah, I mean, I want to imply we don't have any visibility into our commercial customers. And we did add a second utilities program services manager position last fall. I guess it's been about a year ago now, in order to place more focus on the commercial sector. And so she's been really getting her team together and ramping up those commercial focused programs and the outreach to those commercial customers. We've been meeting with the business development folks up in the city manager's office to try and share information and get a handle on the best ways to reach out and communicate with these customers. But we've also had a key account program for many, many years with 2 key account representatives who know our largest customers quite well, the VA hospitals, the Teslas, the Stanford Hospital. So we have a lot of visibility into their business operations and good, strong relationships there. And now we're really looking to how do we dive down the next level and get more going with those customers as well.
Yeah, I would love personally at some point, and I don't know, we have to, just to get a better view, because and maybe even a presentation months down the line on, what is the commercial strategy here on electricity? Given again that it's 80% and it seems, 75% of what I'm reading is about residential, which is great. But, that's 20% of the market. And, I'd love to hear more. What are the different segments here? What can we do for the different segments? We're attracting and bringing in 2 big data centers. Maybe there's not much we can do with them. Maybe we don't need to do much because they're base load, but just kind of going through this and saying, well, then there's the offices, the Googles and Teslas, and, we're seeing less usage there and we plan to see less usage. I really feel, some blindness around that area where I feel I have a much better view of what's going on in residential.
Yeah. And one of the things we've been really focused on are all the combination gas packs on the tops of small buildings. So electric heating that is packaged with, electric cooling that's packaged with gas heating, and looking at ways to head off replacements of those with heat pumps. And actually, there's a little ceremony tomorrow out at the Peninsula Conservation Center down on East Bay Shore that did exactly that kind of swap out. So 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, I think that the mayor will be in attendance at that. And we're trying to figure out how to reach those customers and how to incentivize them to replace those with heat pumps before they go out and replace them with another gas unit.
Thank you.
Chair Siegel, can I go back to the fiber utility real fast? Sorry. I'm aware we've been on this topic for a long time. And by the way, it's really awesome. Whoever put like, let's discuss the annual report on the agenda. I want to express appreciation. I don't recall us having done this before, but I think it's great. On the fiber utility, my question is, have we ever seen, or could we see, and maybe I'll ask it at the end of the meeting, some data around our fiber rates and competitive, neighboring communities or competitors within Palo Alto. I just would love to understand whether how our rates compare for a similar product in this area, given that they haven't changed in a long time when just about everything else has gotten more expensive.
So oh, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so
I'll
we have
follow.
tried, sorry, it's Dave Yenningen. We have tried looking for that data. It is very difficult just because it's such a unique business, what we do. Like the other AT&Ts and Comcast, they offer a managed service. So it's not really a dark fiber service. So all we give them is a conduit and some fiber strands, and they have to provide all the equipment and light it up themselves and manage it themselves. So I don't think anyone else is really offering that. Maybe we can reach out to like Santa Monica and some other municipalities that have that same kind of business model. But for the third-party private companies, I don't think they're doing that. Just
I
because
think
it's
it'd
not.
be super interesting. Like Santa Monica would be a great comparable in many ways. And because we're expanding the dark fiber, right?
The backbone, yes, we are.
Yeah, which means there's demand for this product. I'm just wondering if we're sort of pricing to value or if we're pricing to cost. And
Yeah.
it would be interesting to learn more. I'll leave it at
Agreed.
that.
We have discussed it. Yes. Okay, we'll do.
Sorry, and one more on that is that we did put in a lot of money recently in the downtown upgrade. So that was expanding the dark fiber. And yeah, maybe we got more customers online as well. But anyway, I guess beating a dead horse, but it's been a long time.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
I had one just comment on the EV, all of the EV initiatives, which was that, I think that it would benefit Palo Alto to have copious amounts of EV charging everywhere, both public, available to people who are driving to Palo Alto, as well as, of course, the multifamily residences that we've been focusing on. And would hope that we could somehow overcome the barriers to putting those in where people want them, but also just having more initiatives to put them in here in Palo Alto for the public, because there was this high profile, I think Granholm was, going around on the East Coast, and articles were written about how difficult it was for her to charge her fleet everywhere she went. And I've experienced that all the time. I want to go to the museum up in the city, and I go into the garage, and there's 4 chargers and 2 are non-functional, and all of them have cars parking at them, sometimes not even plugged in. So it's very frustrating. And I think to be a modern city that encourages EVs and wants to have people feel, not have range anxiety when they're driving here to come to our nice restaurants or visit anything here, I think we should have, EV capability that matches our residents' interest in EVs, which is very high, as we know. So it was just as I read it, I was thinking, wow, it's really hard to get these things in. It seems like there are a lot of barriers to moving the process along in multiple of the initiatives. But I also just wanted to state that I really think, so I guess there's a goal of 180 to 360 ports in the technical assistance program, and only 16 or 15 ports have gone in. And these numbers seem like they should be 10 times higher. So it's just a comment. I don't know if you guys want to speak to it and the challenges, but it's just really a comment to encourage us to try to move a little bit faster.
Okay, I think with that, thank you very much. This was a really productive, robust conversation. We will take Can we do 7:50, an 8-minute break? Thanks. Okay, thanks. We're back and ready for item number 2, which is a discussion of the winter 2023-2024 natural gas price uncertainty management council decision implementation. So uncertainty management and the council's decision to implement it. Are there any public comments on this item?
This is Janelle Camion, Program Assistant. If anyone from the public would like to speak on item number 2, please raise your hand or dial *9 on your phone. No hands raised.
Thanks. Is there a presentation for this one?
Yeah, staff has a presentation. This presentation will, as we've talked about in the past, we're bringing it back to you to have a discussion tonight around the natural gas prices that rose dramatically during the winter time. And we were asked that we come up with some type of strategy if it's possible to look at some hedging for this upcoming winter. And so tonight we have Jason Hong, who did his stints, background checks around, looking at different options that we might have. So we have Jason tonight that will be giving the presentation, and Carla and myself will be able to help if you have further questions at that point. So I'll turn it over to Jason.
I'll actually start. Thank you so much. Go ahead and switch to the next slide, please. So as Dean said, we have been to council with this item already. This is really a recap for you all to bring you all up to speed on what happened. We had been scheduled for the July UAC meeting to bring this to you, and that meeting was canceled, as you know, and because of the time constraints that we had to implement, if should council decide to implement something different from what we were already doing, which is exactly what happened, we needed a little bit of time to get that done before the heating season started. So back in 2012, council made a decision to switch away from a very rigorous hedging strategy to a monthly market price-based commodity rate strategy. At the time, in the years leading up to that point, the gas market had been pretty steadily rising over time, prices getting more and more expensive. We were buying fixed price gas, layering that in over about a 3-year purchasing timeframe, and then there was a big boom in shale gas production and prices fell very dramatically. And so council made a decision to change the purchasing strategy. So gas commodity prices change every month for Palo Alto ratepayers. That price is tied to a published market index. And until there's in the rate schedule, there is a maximum charge that commodity can go up to, because City Council is the only body that can legally approve rates. And so even though that price is fluctuating with the market, there's a maximum that is set by council. Until January of 2023, the market price had remained for years, from 2012 until that time. So nearly over 10 years, the price had remained below that, that commodity cap or maximum charge. Next slide, please. So in late November of 2022, staff noticed that prices looked like they were starting to rise in a fairly unprecedented manner. And so we put a lot of communications out to customers, telling them that we were seeing the potential for some high prices over the winter, giving them tips on how to keep their energy usage down in their homes. And at the same time, we went to council in the very last meeting of the year that year and asked to double the maximum commodity charge from $2 a therm to $4 a therm, thinking that that was plenty high enough. The monthly price index for January 2023 settled just below $5 a therm. So a dollar over what that, nearly a dollar over what that maximum charge was. As a result, we ended up taking a little under $2 million out of the operating reserve in order to cover that difference between the council approved maximum price and what we actually had to pay for that gas out on the market. Next slide, please. Here's, I think, a great picture to show what happened. You can see pretty stable prices, relatively speaking, before and after, and then the gigantic spike that we experienced in January of 2023. Next slide, please. So we, being well aware of the pain that caused the community, we came to the Finance Committee with with an option different from the status quo for dealing with our purchasing strategy for this coming winter. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk about that.
Thanks, Carla. Good evening, commissioners. Jason Huang, Resource Planning. I work alongside Carla on our gas supply portfolio. So as she mentioned, gas prices were really high during last winter, and they began to actually drop after March 2022. March 2023, and they stabilized under $1 per therm. And they have remained under $1 per therm since then. The winter forecasts have also remained under $1 per therm, but the sudden increase prices and that happened last winter actually caused a lot of, I think, pain for the customers, and I think there were a lot of complaints. And so we started to look at potential ways to kind of mitigate that impact to make sure that something like that wouldn't happen again. So we started exploring different strategies, and we did identify one procurement strategy that we thought we could put in place by this winter. And that procurement strategy is called a capped price winter gas purchasing strategy. And so even though that the prices have calmed down and there is a CPUC investigation, there also is a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission investigation, which I think Commissioner Forcell, you had asked what the timeline is on that. I think it's a fast 36 months. So we're probably going to get the findings on that in spring of 2026. And so in lieu of that, we have to figure out something that we should do. And so we identified the strategy, the cap price winter gas purchasing strategy that could limit the risk and impact of another surge. Basically, the cap price winter gas purchasing alternative, it involves continuing to purchase our gas tied to a published monthly index, so what we're doing right now, but also purchasing the gas needed for the coldest winter months with the cap in place. And so the cap in place that we have is $2 per therm. It functions as an insurance policy. And the $2 per therm is actually a price that's consistent with the pre-winter 2022-23 council-approved maximum commodity rate. The way that it's going to work with the price cap is, for example, if the monthly index settles below $2 per therm, then our purchase price is just a monthly index. On the other hand, if the monthly index settles at above $2 per therm, then the city's purchase price would be $2 per therm. So to understand kind of the impact behind this, as Carla mentioned before, in January 2023, the price went up to almost $5 per therm. If we had this cap in place, we would have limited our purchase price to $2 per therm, saving about, I would think, close to $2 million. So we're looking at the cap for just the December, January, and February, to be specific. And the reason that we're doing December through February, these are typically the coldest and the most expensive months for gas in California. They're the most at risk for dramatic gas prices, volatility, and that's all due to just the winter supply and market fundamentals. These were also the 3 months during last winter where the indexes settled at the highest levels from just above $1.25 per therm to shy of the $5 per therm. Given the cost of the $2 per therm price cap, so given the cost of insurance, we only recommended the council that we bought these caps for December through February, but and continue to purchase the gas without the price caps for the remaining months of the year. Okay, so a typical gas year is from November through October. That's how we buy our supply. And so November 1st is today, so the gas period started today. Today, we're starting to charge the extra insurance on the customer bill, but we're actually buying caps for December, January, February. Okay. Let me see what else is here. Okay, and the way that we're structuring the impact is that we're on the customer bill is that we're spreading out the cost of the caps for the 3 months over the 12 months. So the customers aren't going to get 3 months of cap cost on their just December, January, and February bill. They're going to get it spread across. And so you'll see a 5.5 cents. I'm going to get down to the mathematics later on, but they'll see a 5.5 cent impact on each monthly bill for the year. Next slide, please. Oh, there you are. Okay. So this is obviously council approved, and this was council approved back in September. We implemented this just a couple of weeks ago. I know that we didn't talk with you guys in July, so it's really good to be able to speak with you to kind of get your feedback and input, and also just have this discussion so you know what's going on. With the considerations that we have for the alternative cap price winter gas purchasing, this is what we had said is that it would protect preserves from price spikes. So I think I talked about, the price spike from $2 to $5. If we had this in place, we would have saved about $1.8 million from reserves that we had to draw down last year. It'll also protect the customers from price spikes because we are a pass-through rate as far as our strategy on the rates. And so they also would not have seen that increase from $2 to, I think, the $4 max that we had in place last year for the commodity rate. The flip side of this is it's a cost, right? It's an insurance cost, it's a price cap cost. So anything that we need to do to hedge any kind of market mechanism, if you implement it over many years, it's going to be a higher cost. It's just like your insurance premium for your car, auto, house. This is just the energy policy, insurance policy that's on the energy cost of the gas. The other part of this is that if the gas prices do stay below $2 per therm, then we're just paying it. Okay, and so that may be something that we need to consider for the future years if it's worth it to continue to do it. But I think council's understanding of this is last year was once again a lot of pain, a lot of customer complaints, very high bills, and they really wanted to implement something this year just in case. We're only less than 12 months removed from what happened. The cap price product is also a little bit uncommon. And so what we had to do is actually reach out to our suppliers and ask them if they could create some kind of custom product for us. And we were able to get some quotes first and then be confident enough that this is something that we could be put in place and also get estimates from and quotes from, and then ultimately be able to carry out. The last thing I want to say about the considerations for alternative is that the cost of the product with all insurance, if the market is really volatile, or if things go a little bit higher, or the prices tend to go a little bit in a way that has not been seen before, then the prices of the insurance is actually going to go up. And it actually did go up a little bit from when we introduced this earlier in August before the council. But on the flip side, if prices are stable, then the insurance costs, we believe, should also go down. Okay, next slide. All right, so what actually happened? So we implemented this just 2 weeks ago. The price cap, once again, is $2 per therm. We implemented this for December 2023, January and February. So not this month, but starting next month. And our price that we actually executed on was 27.5 cents per therm. Okay, and we were able to actually get 50% of our baseload volumes. So not for our full volume, just half of it. And the original estimate of what we thought we could get it for was 17.5 cents to 27.5 cents. So the offer that we were able to execute on was 27.5 cents per therm for 50% of our volumes for that December to February period. The total cost came out to $1.5 million. The total estimated cost before, when we put this into the council packet, was $2 to $3 million. So effectively, that $1.5 million total cost for 50% of the caps equates to about 5.5 cents per of a therm increase applied to gas sales. The original estimate was 7 to 11 cents per therm. What that translates to from a median monthly residential bill impact is about $1.81 for each month for the 12 months. The original estimate was $2.31 to $3.63.
Can I just make sure I understand this math? So part of
Yes.
the reason these numbers, the total cost estimate and bill cost estimate is lower is because we're buying half and not all,
That's
right?
correct. That's right.
Since we're asking questions midstream, should I? Okay, so if it's only covering 50% of the base load, does that mean if the price spikes, we basically are protected just on 50%, and then we're on the hook for anything between 2 and 4 we can pass on to the customer, and then above that, we can't. Is that?
That's right.
That's right.
That's
Okay.
right.
And the fact that it's December, January, and February means if it's high in March, we're not covered, that we have to pay the high price if for some reason. it
That's right.
persists.
That's correct. Any more questions? Just wrapping up, this it's a 2.8% increase. The estimate was 4 to 6%. But once again, to your point, Commissioner Siegel, is because we only bought 50% of our caps.
It seems like a very cool instrument, and I was wondering who is on the other side of the transaction. So it sounds like it's a supplier. It's not like a financial institution writing a call option.
It's not.
Which is what it looked like.
Right. So this is actually a physical product, which is also why it was a little bit harder to achieve, because there are, I think, financial organizations that are willing to sell you anything. And so we went to our major gas suppliers to reach out and see, hey, can you come up with something that is still physically driven, but also has a cap in place? And so we were able to get this from one of our largest gas suppliers.
And why did we not go to the financial institutions who would do this?
Our energy risk management policy forbids us from engaging in financial transactions.
That policy is city policy or?
Yes, council approved.
Okay. I mean, I guess my bigger question is, I think for the short run, given the optics of the situation and I think this is the right decision, or I wouldn't question it. For the long run, I think we should be considering other things. I mean, this is a $1.5 million policy that would have saved us $2 million. I think that's what you said a little earlier.
Or just that 1 month of January.
In what is basically a once in 30 year, really a black swan, right? I mean, to use the kind of financial slang.
Right.
So that's not a very good deal, really. I mean, to do in the long run. One question, maybe it is prohibited by our policies, and we should think about is, why don't we self-insure? Why don't we keep the 1.5 million, cut out the middleman and use it to reduce the bill if this black swan?
So you beat us to the
occurs.
punch, Commissioner Phillips. We actually do have another slide to talk about. Yep, you knew it.
Did you just draw that up right while I was talking?
We have another slide, which is other considerations beyond the cap price winter gas purchasing. And so Carla will talk about those briefly.
Sure. And, again, we were looking for something we could implement quickly, respond to the community's needs and the council's needs around this. But yes, self-insuring is a possibility. That's kind of what we did with the drawdown of the $2 million for the cost that we couldn't cover. That said, we could create a separate reserve that is just for this purpose. It would take some time to build it up, and we would have to explore how much money do we want to keep for an incident like this, and over what period of time would we want to take to accumulate that money. Pros and cons to that, obviously, it would take some time to build it up, but then once you have the pot of money and if you use it once in 20 years, then that's better than buying the insurance every year. We could look at layering back in some fixed price purchases into our portfolio. Maybe something not quite as robust as what we used to do with the gas purchasing laddering strategy that went out 3 years and covered every single month. We could do something more modest than that. We'd have to also rethink how we set our rates if we were doing that, because buying fixed price and still tying our commodity rate to the monthly market is a kind of a weird mismatch. And so part of why we implemented the strategy that we did this year was so that we didn't have to touch that existing rate setting strategy. So we might have to look at something that is both sides of the equation if we veer too far from the way we're purchasing now. The full laddering strategy like we used to do. Owning your own gas production is certainly a way to control costs. I mean, I just put it on there because trying to be complete with that list probably doesn't fit with the city's risk profile or expertise. And then gas storage is another way to arbitrage winter price spikes. Gas storage is very expensive. There are injection costs, there are holding costs, there are withdrawal costs. When we've looked at that in the past, it hasn't penciled out for this purpose. It can be a very useful tool for reliability. PG&E kind of performs that function for us on the system. Again, it's a possible answer, so we should look at it again. We haven't looked at it in a number of years. Councilmember Tanaka, when we went to council, actually brought up an idea of purchasing costless collars, and I'm sure you're aware what those are. You have not just a cap on the price, but also a floor on the price, and those offset each other such that you don't pay any insurance for them. Downside is if prices really fall, then you hit that floor and customers can't take advantage of those falling prices. So there are lots of options, alternatives out there, and some of them have implications for the way we set our rates. They all have implications for our reserves and for our customers. And so we are going to need to do a deeper dive and come back with some alternatives for moving forward. There's also the status quo and just previous status quo, I guess, and going back to passing through that market price and, potentially taking the chance on an ugly winter month like we had last winter. Next slide, please, unless you all want to talk about that one for a bit.
Yeah, I had one question. I just want to be sure I understand. Accepting this insurance that you just talked about, we purchase gas completely in spot market, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when we talk about risk profile, that's very different than a risk profile in electricity or water, where we have bought into facilities, right?
True. Yeah. I mean, it depends on whose risk you're talking about to some extent, because as it's a pass-through cost, there's generally pretty low risk to the utility, higher risk to the customers.
Right. I just want to be sure I understand. I mean, like in the case of electricity, we own shares in dams, for example.
Correct, which is why I threw up the gas production assets that's kind of the closest analogy to owning generation would be owning gas production assets out in the field.
Right. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but I just want to point out the risk profile is very different than what we're doing in other utilities.
Question. I don't know if you were planning to go over the council adopted motion slide.
Oh, certainly can put it up.
But I noticed that it was a maximum commodity rate impact of 15 cents per therm. Is that why we only went with 50% of the portfolio? It wasn't that the supplier wouldn't sell more insured gas. We had to limit the amount in order to stand the price.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Did you say that we buy gas once a month? So we basically have a monthly price that's set for the entire month? How does that work? And does everybody do purchases once a month?
So we actually procure either by the full year or by season. And so it really depends on the volatility at the time that we're seeing. I think when things seem to be a bit more stable a few years ago, we would just procure gas on a monthly price for the entire year. Lately, for the past 2-3 years, we've been doing it on a seasonal basis. So we'll buy a winter period and we'll buy summer period, and the winter being November through April, and then May through October is when we procure the rest of it. But it is all based on the monthly price that's set right before the month starts.
Right. So we'll do a transaction that says, we're going to buy this much gas for November, December, January, February, March, different amount for each month because it's different base load amount for each month. And we want to buy it based on this published index. And so we'll get a quote back that says, we'll sell you that gas for index plus a penny. And so we don't know how much that price is going to be until the month gets here. But we know we're paying index plus some tiny little, adder on to it. Yeah.
And is there any analogy, or is gas just simply different than electricity? So in electricity, when you're just buying it literally at market price, I don't believe we're doing any forward purchasing, are we? When we have to buy market and electricity.
We do some forward purchases on electricity as well.
I guess the question is there any strategy where you would have more real-time purchasing of gas, or is that just not done?
You can buy gas on a daily basis if you want. There is a daily published index that you could do it.
Yeah, and we do buy and sell a little bit on the daily market because our base load doesn't ever end up being exactly what it is that we use. So there are some intra-month transactions that happen on the daily market as well.
I guess just to follow up, are those usually more expensive or less expensive, or is it just kind of a wash with what we set?
It's generally a wash.
Okay, so there's a benefit to just not having to deal with moment by moment purchasing and just having
there's no
4
such
months
thing
at a
as,
time.
yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as moment by moment on in the gas markets. A day is the smallest increment.
When are you scheduled to come back with a recommendation for the longer term? This is a lot of analysis that it would appear needs to be done. Particularly, I think the first option versus the status quo of not doing anything, the previous status quo versus, repeating this again. I mean, the other two options, gas production assets and storage. I mean, yes, obviously they should be put in the mix, but I would be gobsmacked if either one of them came out as being, this is the thing we should be doing. So, it's kind of looking at those and laddering, and even, so it's kind of looking at those three options. When would you expect to be able to come back?
That's a good question. We don't have it on the calendar right now. We're still down a resource planner. And Jason's carrying a big load on both the gas side and the electric side for analysis. And so I'm hoping to get another person hired shortly, and then we can really lay out our work plan. I would say on the self-insurance strategy, there's still going to be some gap of years where we don't have that reserve built up yet, and we'll have to have, so it might be,
Well,
if we move with recommending that strategy, we might have to have some interim strategy that goes along with that.
sure. Or the strategy could be our historic strategy of since 2012 of not doing anything. But that's what the analysis would be all about.
Yeah.
So we don't know. Until we reanalyze the status quo, we're going to keep this charge on. So all year.
The charge will be on.
Paying for this insurance partly, so we're kind of, since we're not going to analyze again, are we committed to do this again in next year?
We are not committed again. The council only approved 1 year. And yes, the 5 cents was calculated based on an entire year's worth of gas sales. And so customers won't see that on their bills. There's not a separate line item for it. It'll be embedded in the commodity charge. We
Yep.
did, make some changes to our website for people who are curious to go in and look at the details. But to recoup that $1.5 million cost that we've already committed to, we will need through October 31st to collect all of that.
So even self-insuring or doing anything forward insuring, we're gonna have to add another layer on top of this because we're essentially paying backwards for some of the insurances.
Correct. And one might even add the $2 million that we took out of reserves last year that needs to be paid back as well.
Okay.
Commissioner
interesting.
Mater.
Yes, thank you for the helpful overview. I don't actually have questions about this presentation, but I did have a couple of questions just in terms of what we can learn about the price elasticity of natural gas using data from last winter and the challenges at basically using that data to more granularly inform where we're going to have difficulty in weaning customers off of natural gas. So I'm curious, just as a starting point, you mentioned that you had kind of warned customers that their gas bills were likely to be very high last winter, even the same month that they would be consuming that gas. Was there much reduction in demand during that time?
Was there a reduction in demand?
In gas demand?
Yeah.
No, I think during that period of December, it was also a lot colder. And so I don't know if you remember, there was a lot more consumption on the volatile side. Not a lot more, but there's more than the average consumption from the year prior. And it was a function of more demand on the California system as well. So having said that, I think that the jury is still out, which is why the CPUC and the FERC is still looking into what actually caused the prices to spike. I think looking at the data, this is just from my point of view, is that market fundamentals alone may not explain what happened, and it actually caused a lot of people to be caught off guard with the prices. But we knew that there would be a price rise due to what we were seeing in November, and so we started communications out to say like, hey, you're going to get higher prices. Did we know that it actually get to that level?
Yeah, I think what you're asking is, we told people prices were going to be high. Did we see people reduce their gas use because of the communications we put out? Is that your question?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. No, and I don't think people, as much as we tried to put those communications out there, I think most people didn't pay attention until they saw their bill.
If I can add, I also think that during that period of time that we saw the weather change, that November was really starting to be a cold timeline, and it stayed cold all the way through that December, January timeframe. So I think that even though that we sent out messages that customers to cut back, I just think that the weather played havoc with the residents, that there was a higher use during that period of time.
Okay. I mean, it does suggest that there's not a tremendous amount of price elasticity in gas consumption, which is consistent with my general understanding, but also, is a warning to us as a UAC around the challenges that we're going to see in transitioning off of gas going forward in our general decarbonization strategy. And I think if rising prices did not encourage that transition, it behooves us to probably lean more heavily on the consumer side, interventions like the heat pump water heater program and other incentive programs that help customers get off of gas more broadly.
Oh, was there anything more? No. I had a couple comments, questions. I don't know, just sort of thoughts. I'm not sure how to even describe it, but Okay, first one question, does the increase impact does the surcharge impact at all the gas transfer that we're making to the city? No, okay. And then just a couple thoughts. So the change in the gas utility long-term plan, I think is what it is, goal, where it went from pass on market cost signal through to customers to pass on market cost signal through to customers with measures to protect against price spikes applied during winter months. I appreciate that is what we had to do because of this. I find it very troublesome because I mean, sort of to Commissioner Motter's point, like, we're trying to get off gas and we're trying to discourage the use of gas. And here now we're saying, hey, don't worry about it in the winter. We know it's going to be expensive and we're going to, take care of you a little bit. And so I worry that there's some mixed signals there that that trouble me. This language is this language for now, but I would hate to see this be our prospective language for our long-term plan. And just sort of free thinking on that also is the whole idea of like a gas reserve to protect against prices in the future, I find also problematic because that means current people are paying for future consumers, and the more they consume, the more, in a way, the more protection or reduction they're getting, because if it's by therm, then the more therms you use, the more discount you're getting, and that also seems a little bit inverted to me. So yeah, I don't know. Same idea of, and the one last thought was when we spread these costs over a lot of time, I don't know what kind of change we have in our customers, but it means some customers are paying for other customers, people who come in and out as customers. So that's another. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment on the council process. First of all, as you well know, it was out of phase, meaning it should have come to UAC, and I think the timelines of moving on this prevented that from happening. In the context of the discussion, after we sort of made our decisions, I even suggested that it could come back here to get your final input on it. But with the action that staff had to take to make this happen, to get it ready for winter, it didn't happen. So to Commissioner Phillips' point, in the future, we should be planning now for what we have to do next year, so we can process this back through the real experts here.
Yep.
So I would urge you to try to get that on a timeline that makes that work, because it's not automatic, as we all know, that we would do this again, just sort of automatically. But there were some drivers of this. Not the least was obviously the very high concern, shock, pain that was felt by the residents, and I think collectively at council, that ended up being the driver, is that we just can't take the risk that the residents are going to hit this 2 years in a row, particularly because the reserves are down. So we had the 2 million that we were able to pay, and then eventually we had a surplus, so we were able to pay it back actually to the residents to help them a little bit more. But this was not a 5-minute meeting, 5-minute issue at the council meeting, and it wasn't universal going into it. But with the risk to residents and in spite of the costs that I and others brought up that we now know about here as well, that we could just lose a lot of money on this. It was just determined that the risk was too high this year in the light of not knowing what caused it. So it wasn't like you or staff or council could do an analysis of, well, we know it's not going to happen because it's just a black swan. And that'll, to use the financial slang. And so it can't possibly happen again because we don't know what caused it. So in the absence of any analysis with the risk there, folks sort of at the end, I think it's fair to say, kind of came around to, it's just a risk that we have to put a cost behind to make sure it doesn't happen.
I'm just going to say, I really appreciate those comments from Commissioner Siegel. I hadn't really thought of that way, but now that you put it that way, I do think it is kind of giving people a buy where I was actually kind of interested in seeing year over year consumption because people can remember the spike from last year. And I would think that this year they'd be like, oh, shoot, that could happen again. I'm going to try and cut back this year. Maybe I'm going to do some improvements on my installation and so I don't have to use quite so much. So I would hope that we see some conservation just as a result of the pain from last year. But one thing that I definitely remember, next door being full of all these people that were irate about their bills. And similarly on the heat pump water heater process, I went on next door to see what I could learn about the different heat pumps that were available. And there was a conversation that was just, a huge conversation about the choice of going with the heat pump water heater. And one of the things that was interesting about it was trying to figure out the calculation of how much more it's going to cost you. I think, unfortunately, things come down to how much it's going to cost you, no matter how good it is for the planet or for the city or whatever it is. Oftentimes it just comes down to dollars, and that's all that, whoever's commenting is going to comment on. So it would be kind of helpful to see the comparison of energy from electricity versus gas. I have no idea what's going to happen when we electrify everything. And if we can somehow make it so it's more attractive to be getting electricity than gas. And I understand there's limitations on what we can do with rates. We can't just make gas more expensive and electricity cheaper. But I would be I'm sure you guys have way more knowledge than I do about the relative cost of, heating your water with a water heater versus gas. But that's what these conversations between the residents got into, is like, am I going to save money over the long term by changing from gas to electric? And unless the money works out, not really compelled to spend that money on the upgrade. And then you have to figure out, like, am I going to make money over the long term? And ideally, to get people to electrify, just to make the financial we're going to have to make the financial argument. I don't know if there's any way around it if you're going to get the bulk of the people to change over.
Great. Any other comments, thoughts? Okay, we will move on. Thank you for that. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
circling back even after the fact. Any commissioner comments and reports from meetings or events?
Any SCAP?
No SCAP.
Any SCAP subcommittee reports?
No, there's a meeting next week on SCAP on the heat pump water heater strategy.
Can we look forward to a report next month?
In-person meeting with lunch. Okay.
I'll just comment, thank you to Dean for participating in the League of Women Voters conversation about SCAP, along with a couple of community members. I don't know how many people were on the call, but I think it was a group that isn't ordinarily participating in our UAC meeting. So it was great to get the word out more broadly. I think it was really informative for people on the call. Okay, any future topics for upcoming meetings? Yeah.
Yes. One thing I'd like to suggest, a sort of a meta topic, is getting to a 12-month rolling calendar. That's kind of gotten really short. It would be helpful, at least for me, to be able to plan in advance what we're going to be talking about. And our bylaws call for it. So I'd urge that we have a 12-month calendar. In terms of specific topics, grid modernization, I think is an important one. It may be listed here, but I don't see it. So that's obviously an important one that we talked about a little bit a few months ago. And second topic, reliability and resilience strategic plan update. That's scheduled for December. And I have a question about what's included. Specifically, will that include resilience only when the grid's operating, or does it also address, major grid failure and what we do in that event? And I think those are the two areas I'd like to request as topics.
Yeah, just to mention it at the appropriate time. I think it would be really awesome to have that conversation about the fiber utility, the dark fiber utility and rates. And if there are comparisons available, just to understand those financials better.
And going back, I'd like to see something at some point about the commercial electricity segmentation and plans specific to the commercial sector.
And then the one I think I might have mentioned, I don't know, about, I'd love to have another security meeting, both physical security and digital security, whether that's an additional meeting or closed door session or however it has to be, but I think it's probably time. Great, and with that, I think we are adjourned. Anyone want to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I second.
I think we can all say aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone. It was a really good discussion.